What is going on, Processing Blue crew? I am Panthers beat reporter Mike Kay. I'm joined by fellow Panthers beat reporter Alex Zutlow, who's got a brand new haircut and is feeling mighty fresh. So why would we even ask him how he's doing? You know what? We'll be kind. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing just like the Philadelphia Phillies in their last 10
Oh.
games. 3 losses, 7 wins, a little up and down, but mostly up. I think we've done a really good job. This leading up to week 1, the whole Observer crew has done a really good job covering the Carolina Panthers. We did a good job in Jacksonville. Both of us were in Jacksonville, and we covered various parts of the carnage of this team, and we even got a fun feature out of it. I sat with the ETN family and the Fitzgerald family during different parts of the game, and so that was fun, getting the side of what it's like to be a family of a rookie player in week 1 of an NFL season. All that was really cool. However, we're not here to talk about the positives, the few cool parts of week 1, because Mike, there wasn't really a lot to draw from.
No, the stuff that we're processing today was a whole boatload of blah. I mean, this felt like more of the same. And I think that it was very discouraging because I think this team has bought itself a lot of goodwill during the offseason and during the summer. And well, that's not what week 1 was. Week 1 was an absolute throttling. And while the score was 26-10, it sure felt like 40-3. And, I think if you're a Panthers fan, you're thinking, did the second half of last season actually happen? Because this sure looks like the first few weeks of last season, which isn't really good because, most of these folks have been around for a pretty long time and should have adjusted. Anyway, before we get into that, adding injury to insult, Turk Warden, one of their big free agent signings, who actually got off to a pretty good start in the game against Jacksonville, is out for 2 to 4 weeks, according to head coach Dave Canales. We'll get into Canales a little bit in a few minutes, but how big do you think this Turk Warden injury could be, at least to their momentum in the first month of the season, especially after losing the way they did against Jacksonville?
I think it's really big. I don't want to be too hyperbolic, because I don't think him not being on the defensive line was the reason for all of Jacksonville's success on the run. However, he did prove to be a better run stopper than, some people in the local media thought he would be. Just in the very brief time, he is clearly a value part of this defensive line that went through so much overhaul in free agency. It's just never good. And it's never good when you go down in the middle of the game and you're just immediately rendered out, as opposed to having this questionable thing. Clearly, it's a pretty significant hamstring injury that we will be following for a little bit. But Mike, what do you think about Turk Warden?
I thought Turk kind of maybe eat my words a little bit. I frequently said he'd be the first guy I'd run at, and he looked pretty good. I thought he stopped the run pretty effectively early on. He had to be checked for a concussion midway through the game, and then injured his hamstring later in the second quarter. So not a great debut for him from a long-term standpoint, but hopefully he gets well soon and they get him back in the mix. Let's talk about the mix that was kind of like a concoction of carnage, to put it frankly. Let's talk about the offense. Look, I think Bryce Young got off to a really good start. I think his weapons let him down pretty regularly outside of Tetairoa McMillan, although he had his blunders too. I thought after the weather delay, he was particularly terrible. There was a tale of two Bryces. It was almost like the time off kind of threw off his rhythm. And when you turn the ball over 3 times and it leads to 10 points, I just don't know how you get a grade better than a D. Look, again, there were a lot of misplays by his playmakers. His playmakers let him down. His offensive line wasn't particularly good. I didn't think he had a very good game. I've seen out there that he had registered 10 drops according to some fantasy website. I don't agree with that. I mean, there were probably a handful, and that's a lot still. But I just think this offense if you're going to evaluate him overall, you have to evaluate what he did pre-snap too. Those guys were getting out of the huddle late. Um, they were snapping the ball with like 1, 2, 3 seconds left. They extended drives that frankly shouldn't have been that long, especially with 1 or 2 earned first downs. I mean, Alex, like, I'm not, again, I don't want to be alarmist. I think Bryce is right. Got to be better. But largely, I would say that this looked like a regressive moment as opposed to a progressive moment. What's your take on Bryce?
It was certainly a regressive moment when you consider the fact that he was red hot the last 4 games of 2024. There's no question. Did we, and when I say we, did people in Carolina jump the gun a little bit and try to equate the last 4 games of 2024 and say it's going to roll over to 25? Perhaps. Those last 4 games of 2024 were inconsequential to the season at large. Yes, the Panthers went into Atlanta and beat the Falcons when their playoff berth was on the line. There's still a difference when there's no pressure on your own shoulders to go out there and play. I was a bit surprised that you had such a tempered view on Bryce Young's day, because I was going to take a tempered view after looking at some advanced stats from Pro Football Focus. Can I throw some stats at you?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so his basic stats: 18 of 35 for 154 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and then of course 1 fumble. Not great. However, according to PFF, he had a 71.8 passing grade and a 71.1 overall grade. And I see you rolling your eyes, but that is and I understand how that could be a bit strange, but take a closer look at these specific stats. Average depth of target, 8.8 yards. Not great, but also not dump down Bryce that we saw at the first 2 weeks of 2024. Adjusted completion percentage, 70%. So that accounts for 3 drops that this website says was made, plus some good throws that could have been completions, but the defense made a good play on the ball. 70% adjusted completion percentage. Seems pretty good. Total pressures, 12. 12 pressures is not a way to operate as a quarterback. He only took 1 sack officially, but that means that he's having to run around and figure out ways to get the ball out on time. Average time to throw the ball, 2.8 seconds, which is not
average.
It's not bad, but so the stats have him actually having an okay day as a passer, and you even saw that in some of the basic stats. You saw that in the 8 for 15 stat on third down. You're over 50% on third down. Like, that's a sign of a relatively healthy offense. But then once you consider everything else, like you mentioned, and I'm sure you're going to go deeper on this, but when you consider everything else, the 3 turnovers, the operational issues on offense, the fact that the center was snapping him the ball early, or snapping the ball in a way that surprised him, particularly on the biggest plays of the game, that's where the issue is. That's where the rest of this quarterbacking thing, him as a passer might have been actually okay, but him as a quarterback on Sunday was very much not good. And I think it's
yeah.
And I that's how I have come to view week 1. But guess what? You're a quarterback. You're going to be judged on the entirety of your game. And if you're a leader, if you're a captain of this team, you're going to be charged with if you win or lose. That's just how it is in football. But when you actually look at him as a passer, it wasn't absolutely more abundantly terrible. So what do you think about the operational issues specifically?
Yeah, I mean, look, so they had 2 drives that were around 5 minutes each when they were trailing by a score or 2. One of them came in the second quarter. It was their 3rd drive of the game. It lasted for 4 minutes and 53 seconds. They gained 39 yards and got 2 first downs, and it led to a punt. So you've just taken off roughly 5 minutes of a possession, or of a quarter when you're trailing. You're running out the clock on yourself. They later had one that was I'm trying to remember. excuse me, that was 5-15. Okay. And that led to 55 net yards. They gained 29 in actual scrimmage yards and then 26 for penalties. And that was the drive where they were stopped at the 5-yard line on 4th and 1. They had another one that was 4 minutes and 10 seconds. They gained 10 net yards.
Too long.
And 1 first down.
What the heck?
Like, I just don't understand how you can operate when you are basically eating away your opportunities. Not only did they give 3 possessions to the opposing team, they basically took away what should have probably been a minute and a half of failure 3 times and ate basically a quarter's worth of work because of their clock management. Like, that is wild to me. Wild.
It's really,
and that's why bad teams lose. It is. Like, they squandered their opportunities, and that was my issue with Bryce's performance. He turned the ball over 3 times. That led to 10 points. They operationally were not very good. Now, Dave Canales, let's move on to him. He said that it was partially his fault for the slow, pre-snap stuff. Either does that mean that he needs to shorten plays? Does that mean he needs to get in plays earlier? Does that mean that he needs to give up play calling so that he can focus directly on other things? I don't know. But I will tell you what happened on Sunday cannot happen again in Arizona, because that's going to be a close game, hopefully, if they perform well. And they cannot squander opportunities. Like, they just can't. Especially with a defense that gives up rushing yardage like they do. And I just, I thought Tedero McMillan showed a lot of flash. I think Xavier Legette, look, I don't know. This is back-to-back times where he had really good summers. And then, I thought his season last year was greatly underrated, especially for what he did in the first half of the season. But, man, you have to have some situational awareness. 2 straight big catches that could have been big plays that he couldn't get feet in. Like, you're a professional wide receiver, and you're in your second year. It's time. I thought Bryce had a couple of throws that weren't turnovers that he would want back. I mean, there was the slot fade to Hunter Renfrow that was just a nightmare. Like, the 4th and 1 play where he just threw it away. When you've kind of got to do something and try to make something happen, at worst you get a touchback from an interception. At best, maybe something happens where you can scramble and produce points. I thought overall decision making, physically, Bryce was very effective as a passer. I think from a mental side of the game and a decision making side of the game, he was not very good.
Let me drill down on that, Mike, and particularly I want to get your thoughts on that 4th and 1 call, because that is when the game it effectively ended, I think. Yes, you could make the argument that the Panthers still mathematically had a way back into the game, a turnover here, a big play there, things can happen. And of course, J.C. Horn did provide that turnover that could have let the Panthers climb back into the game. But at that moment, at the 5-yard line, 4th and 1, that's a moment where you need to get. That's a moment, I think personally, that you hand it off to Chuba Hubbard and he runs behind Robert Hunt one more time. Yes, they stopped him 2 times prior, but if Chuba is truly the guy who is going to make this offense run, that's who you got to go to in moments like that, I think. Now, we asked Dave why he ultimately chose to go with that play call, that empty set, aka 5 receivers out wide and no one in the backfield alongside Bryce, and he said that he liked a matchup. Well, you look at the play again, and what matchup exactly are you talking about? You had Chuba Hubbard going up against Jerrion Jones on the high side on the right. You had Bryson Tremaine against another cornerback. Jordan Lewis. You had JT Sanders against the safety. You had T-Mac against Tyson Campbell. That's 3 cornerbacks in the game, by the way. And then you had Xavier Legette, who was going up against a safety. Now, because the ball was snapped so quickly and it really surprised Bryce, the defense wasn't even really set. Xavier Legette, actually, upon watching the play, was kind of by himself. It looked like the Jags were in some sort of man coverage, and Xavier was like literally by himself, but he ran this route and didn't get his head turned quick enough to the point where they could just do a quick pitch and catch for a first down. I personally, and then ultimately, you know what happens? Bryce kind of like runs in the backfield for a little bit, can't find anybody, and looks like he throws it away, though Dave Canales says that he was aiming for the back pylon. There was a miscommunication on where Xavier Legette was going. No one was catching that ball, no matter like where it was put, or no matter like who was on the receiving end of that, where it was close, because that ball was way out of there. I don't understand the rationale, one, for the play call, and two, like where the matchup was. Where's the matchup that you like with all the guys that I just listed out? I mean, maybe if Adam Thielen was in the game, that would be different. But guess what? Adam Thielen's in Minnesota. Oh, and the guy that you brought in to replace him wasn't even on the field, Hunter Renfrow. Like, I was a bit baffled by that call, and I know that I am not the play caller that Dave Canales says never would pretend to be, but as someone who was observing the game, I just didn't understand it. And did you understand it at all, Mike? Or like, where are you feeling about that play?
Yeah, I wouldn't have gone empty. I even tweeted it out. Like, here's the thing: you can talk about the individual play. I just felt the rhythm of the offense all game long, and I was like, the passing game's just not working. Guys are dropping passes. Guys are running routes. Guys aren't paying attention properly. Like, they're not turning their heads. Like, I don't know that I would have put that on Bryce, given the way that he was ineffective the first 3 quarters, or the way the offense was ineffective the first 3 quarters. Tough spot. I mean, you're going for it on 4th and 1. I mean, had he, he made the right call to go for it on 4th and 1. Earlier on in the game, he had a 4th and 8 that I thought he should have gone for the field goal. I understood why he didn't, just based on the vibes he threw out against Ryan Fitzgerald in the 2 weeks leading up to the game. I've gotten some questions in the mailbag about like, hey, why didn't they go for it offensively? Did you watch the first few quarters? I mean, like all the drives after the first field goal drive, like I just don't. They were only down by 7. They had just given up a touchdown drive off an interception. I think he wanted to play conservative because he knew the score was close and he knew he could pin them back in that instance. But in this instance, I think you create an issue when you go empty because 1, you don't have a blocker in that backfield. 2, you don't have an outlet pass in that backfield. And it was clear, like, if you fail on your first two reads, you're done. Like, they weren't going to throw to Chuba on the other side of the field. Like, that just wasn't going to happen. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought the play calling in general was kind of trite. I don't know what they did that was so revolutionary or, like, effective. Like, Liam Cohen called a pretty good game. I think he's got a lot of experience against Evero and knows that defense pretty well and was able to prepare really well for it. I just, like, kind of felt like, 1, the Jaguars defense played very well. But 2, I thought the offense kind of didn't, like, they've been together for over a year. Like, they showed nothing really different, in my opinion. And I do think they missed Adam Thielen a bit in this game, to tell you the truth. But with that said, let's talk about the defense, because I don't know how many times I can write about this run defense. Like, it's so bad. And like, the numbers are, like, insane.
Yeah.
I spent like a half an hour before Dave Canales got on the podium on Monday just calculating all of these, 200 and 150 and all these, like, big rushing performances against the Panthers. The Jaguars ran for 200 yards on Sunday. That was aided by a 71-yard run by Travis Etienne, who kind of blew the game open there. But here you go. Over the past 18 games, so just the Dave Canales era, not counting the Frank Reich year, the Panthers defense has allowed 200 or more rushing yards 9 times, including in 7 consecutive games. So even in wins, they are getting the ball run on them pretty heavily. Like, if it was a loss, you would say, oh, cool, they're running out the clock. They're trying to maintain, the control on the ground and just run it down their throats. No, this has happened in wins too. In 35 games as defensive coordinator for the Panthers, Ejiro Eberro's run defense has given up 120 rushing yards or more 26 times. That means that 9 games have been under 120. 9 games out of
it's
30.
insane.
It's just like, I think that this scheme really does a good job with coverage for the most part, especially on the outside. I just it's been 3 years of this, and they are allowing all this rushing success, but they're not. It'd be one thing if they were sacrificing rushing success for pass rushing success. Like, if this team had 40 sacks a year and they were like in the bottom 5 in run defense, I don't think people would be this frustrated with the defense. But the fact that they really got very limited pressure in this game and then gave up 200 rushing yards, like, it's just like, what is this? Like, and we've seen variations of this scheme do very, very well. I know a lot of people want to, like, people around here hate the 3-4. I get it. I grew up a massive fan of the 4-3, but the 3-4 is not just like this bad defense that can't stop the run. If that was the case, then nobody would run it. But I think even more perplexing than the rushing totals is the fact that Nick Gordon played 18 snaps. Princely Uman-Milan played less than 10. So did Lathan Ransom. There were 66 snaps on defense. And you've got DJ Wanham and Nick Scott and Patrick Jones playing this, like, unlimited, it feels like, amount of snaps, and they're not having success. And that's the problem. If you have success with veterans, nobody cares. Excuse me. If you are failing with veterans and you have young talent on the bench, people care. It is a very big deal. And as I have said on this podcast several times, Ejiro Evero's history does not play into starting young players early. That's just not what he has done. In fairness to him, in Denver, there was some pretty good talent ahead of the rookies on his depth chart. That's not the case here. I'm sorry. You cannot say that DJ Wanham is like a Pro Bowl caliber pass rusher that can't leave the field. You can't say that Patrick Jones is that. You certainly cannot say that about Nick Scott. I don't understand. Like, I don't get it. And you can tell me about your philosophies. You can tell me about, these guys aren't ready. Gotta tell you, guys, nothing on the field shows that anybody else is any more ready. Trevon Merrick, who they brought in and who was their big guy that they wanted to sign, had a pretty terrible performance in pass coverage. And a lot of people were concerned about that. I wasn't. I was clearly wrong after this one because Liam Cohen just targeted the middle of the field constantly with their tight ends against Merrick. From a pass rushing standpoint, I liked Patrick Jones' get off, but he couldn't get there. Like, DJ Wanham and A'Shawn Robinson forced a little bit of pressure, but like outside of forcing an intentional grounding, they weren't getting to the quarterback. And I think this team is more talented. I just don't know that this defense is adapting well. Like, nothing changes with this defense.
Yeah.
And to Evero's credit, I think J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson have been terrific, and I think the scheme benefits them. I don't think Nick Scott was like completely unplayable the other day. I don't want that to be the message here. I think people are just seeing him and want to throw darts. But he's a replacement level player. Like, and as I put in the mailbag this morning, when you have a safety who's 30 years old and he has very limited upside playing on that back end over a guy like Lathan Ransom, who had a great summer, over a guy in Damani Richardson who flashed last year, you are basically being antithetical to everything that Dave Canales preaches publicly in saying that they are a developmental staff. I don't really know how you justify saying that. And then we asked Dave Canales about it on Monday, and he said he's preaching all this stuff. I think people are pushing back at him saying, like, you're the head coach, make sure you do this. But Evero was retained in knowing that he was an experienced defensive coordinator who was going to be the defensive head coach, essentially. I don't think you want to create issues back and forth this early in a season. But the reality is, like, Nick Scordon's a good prospect and could become a very, very good player. Princely Uman Milan as a rotational pass rusher works. I don't remember even seeing him get a snap in the second half. So, like, I'll give credit. I mean, I'll give this to Evero. Last year, they were incredibly untalented on defense. Last year, they didn't have a ton. They had like no depth either. Now they have this, and it's like you're gonna play guys who are like fine, but you're not gonna play the guys with upside. And I just like. Listen, if Evero wants to be here long term, he's got to develop some of these guys. At this point, when you look at the defensive stats, it's going to be very hard for him to be championed as this awesome head coaching candidate. Like, play the kids, show that you can develop somebody. Because who have they developed on defense? Who? I'm like genuinely asking you, who have they developed on defense the last 3 years? It's not DJ. No. What?
I was just going to say some of it is still in progress, but the fact that, and they took a chance on Damani Richardson, and then Damani Richardson doesn't even play week one. I like, you know me, that I love Damani so much, and so like I get that I might be a little bit more on the Damani train than other people, but like, how do you not,
especially when the coaching staff, evidently.
But like, how do you not play him? He made plays on special teams. Like every time he's on the field, he makes a play. I digress.
So wait, here. Let's do this. Let's have some fun. How about, okay. DJ Johnson, developed or not developed?
Not developed.
Jamie Robinson, developed or not developed?
Oh, so we're about to be mean. No, not developed.
Trevin Wallace, who we said had a great summer and have high expectations for, was absolutely atrocious in this game.
Played 86% of the snaps. I think he ended up with the worst defensive grade on PFF.
Yeah, which is not an exact science and is very subjective.
Yeah.
But he, just the eye test, he was not very good. So he's a work in progress. We'll go with that. Okay. Like
Shaw Smith-Waite.
Let me ask you this. Like, who on this defense, like, you could argue Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson played at his zenith, right? JC Horn has, I'm not sure if I'm going to give them credit for that, because JC Horn's always had the talent. He's just been injured. Like, who is being like elevated here? And I think part of being a really good or defensive coordinator is having people that develop talent. Now, AC Carter's brand new here. He's had one game of experience here, but DJ Johnson's been here for 3 years. What, like?
I hear you, dude. I hear you.
I'm just saying, like, and look, I feel for people that are watching these games. Like, objectively, it's frustrating for me as somebody who is like watching the same thing over and over again. It's like watching somebody walk into a puddle and they're going to slip, but you can't tell them because you don't have a voice, right? Like, it's just like, it's over and over and over again. It's like repetitive. And so,
damn, that's kind of a heartbreaking metaphor, Mike. Are you okay?
Oh, but like, I do think Evero's a really smart coordinator. I do. I think he knows his system very, very well. I don't think they've done a very good job of developing talent. And I don't think they have been particularly free-flowing with ideas. Like, I don't think that they have created a defensive atmosphere for success. I thought his first year as a defensive coordinator here was terrific, all things considered. They regressed mightily last year. And all we ever hear from defensive coordinators is stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. Well, you can't stop the run. That's a fact. That is what's going on. And I think there's no changes, right? The same guys are going to play. The same guys are going to do this. This is what's going to happen. And I have a lot of respect for Evero. I do not understand some of the logic in staying the same and just putting out the same product. Like, you have to hold people accountable with playing time. You have to develop players. And right now, it just doesn't feel like either thing is happening. What's your take on the defense, Alex? Sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, it's all good. You literally brought up all the points that I wanted to bring up, particularly about the snap counts. Trevor Wallace played 86% of the snaps. Shaw Smith-Wade played 71% of the snaps. Outside of that, I believe maybe I need to be double checked here, but I believe that those are the two guys who have like 17 or 18 games of experience on this Panthers team who got over 50% of the snaps on defense. And I know that's not a ton of guys, but like that's not enough. Nick Scorton played 27% of snaps on defense. Princely Uman-Milan, 12% of snaps on defense. Lathan Ransom played 9 total defensive snaps. Like, that's just not good enough. I'm repeating myself. The one thing that I do want to mention, and you did mention that Dave Canales is pushing for these younger guys to play. Isn't he the head coach? Like, I'm a bit. That's another thing that's a bit confusing. I understand that EJ Evero is the guy on the defensive side of the football. Like, he is the defensive head coach. He calls the plays. He has a massive say in who plays and who the team drafts. I totally get that. But like, what do you mean you're just pushing for this? Like, if this is your will, Dave, you're the one who's getting credited for the wins and losses. Like, this is your team. So that's one thing that I found a bit interesting from the Monday presser.
I think so. I want to be careful here. I think this is just based on his messaging. It sounds like he is having general conversations about it, and he hasn't like really pushed the pedal down on that. I think Dave's going to wear this loss for a really long time, and how he handles the loss, he's going to wear for a really long time. And I think you have an opportunity here to say, like, hey, play these guys. Because in fairness to Dave, granted, they've spent back-to-back first-round picks on wide receivers. He has played most of his rookies on offense. Like, Mitchell Evans even got reps, and they have 2 starting tight ends. Like, he's allowing them to participate. I just think, I don't know, like there's this like thought process with some fans where it's like, would you rather lose with like a 37-year-old quarterback, or would you rather lose with a 23-year-old quarterback and see if he has upside, right? Like, you want to make sure that, you know, you're tapping into this potential. And for right now, when you play with a bunch of old dudes and they're not doing well, is it worth it, right? Because what development are you getting out of it? This team doesn't have massive expectations. You expected them to win 8 games. I expected them to win 7. We both expected them to beat the Jaguars, but like not in a rout. And so like, they're entering this game against Arizona 0-1 against a 1-0 team that beat their division rival. And I mean, what's positive to cling to here other than Ryan Fitzgerald and his wonder leg, right? Like that's the thing. You know what's crazy? Special teams was the thing that I was most concerned about heading into this game, believe it or not, because of a talent perspective. There's no like genuine like special teams ace on here. That was the unit that delivered. Tracy Smith had a very, very good day on Sunday, all things considered. The kicker was good. The kickoffs were pretty tactical. They returned relatively well. Like, that was the one group that was like, hey, yo. Like,
had a punt within the 10. It landed on like the 2-yard line, and the coverage just like let it bounce back 7 yards, but still a great punt by Sam Martin. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about, since he went to App State, I might start calling him Free Apps, but I don't know. We've got to work on it.
Yeah, okay. Let's move on to Arizona.
Let's do that. Go ahead.
Okay, so as Mike mentioned earlier, the Cardinals defeated the Saints 20-13 this past weekend. Yes, the Saints outscored the Panthers for those paying attention at home. And yes, our producer Emily just said roll nears, so that's cool. Kyler Murray went 21 of 29 for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns. Pretty efficient day. They did, however, get him for 5 sacks, so this could be an opportunity for the Panthers to flash this pass rush that didn't get going at all against the Jaguars. A couple more stats.
Sounds probable.
Yeah, of course. I'm 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 trying to look at things positively, Mike. A couple other things about the Cardinals, and then I'll toss it to you for a prediction and what you think about what's coming down the pike on Sunday. Marvin Harrison Jr. was the leading receiver, 5 catches for 71 yards and 1 touchdown against the Saints. Tight end Trey McBride had also a really good day for the Cardinals in week 1. He had 6 catches, but was targeted 9 times for 61 yards. He had 4 first downs. Could give these Panthers linebackers and or Trayvon Merrick some issues in the coverage game. And then on defense, the one guy you got to look out for when you're talking about this Cardinals defense is Budda Baker, the safety. This defense kind of runs everything through him, from what I can tell. 10 tackles, 1 tackle for loss in week 1. Mike, after really looking at this Cardinals team, and yes, they played the Saints, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I watched that entire game. But when I kind of ran that all down to me, I was like, oh, wow, this might be a tougher matchup for the Panthers than I initially thought. What did you think?
Oh, sorry about that. I mean, look, I have very limited respect for what the Saints have done. So I wonder how much of a litmus test this actually was for them. But what I will say is, I think from the Cardinals' perspective, they match up pretty well against the Panthers' defense. And Trey McBride, to me, is going to be the X factor. This team has not covered tight ends well over the last 3 years. Whether it's Merrick or Xavier Woods or whomever, it just has not worked. And so I actually think Marvin Harrison's going to have a tough time against J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson, 2 guys who are around his size, who can kind of throw what he's thrown at them. Look, the running game is going to have to be a thing. The Panthers beat the Cardinals last year because they ran the ball effectively. They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't make silly mistakes. They just kind of endured and outlasted them. The Cardinals put up 146 rushing yards against the Saints last week. As I've said, the Panthers have given up 200 rushing yards in each of the last 7 games. Now you got a mobile quarterback, and that is where I'm very concerned. I do not know what the answer is. If you're going to spy him, maybe you spy him with Trevin Wallace so he is not getting eaten up by play action and stuff like that. He needs to be focused on Kyler Murray. And look, I've never been a Kyler Murray guy. I don't think he is in the top 12 of quarterbacks. But if you are a team that is not, disciplined, and you get out of your rushing lane, or you've got bad run fits, he is going to eat you alive. And when he doesn't, he's going to throw it up to that big tight end, who is maybe the most underrated playmaker in his division in the NFC West. And I think McBride's going to be a real big problem unless they can really, make sure that they, are, on their P's and Q's. I think the coverage of the wide receivers is going to be fine. I think J.C. Horn has, again, proven that he is one of the best corners in the league. That interception against the Jaguars was wild.
Insane.
Offensively, I do think the Panthers can have some success. The system that Gannon runs isn't too dissimilar from Evero's. And I think, I think Bryce Young had success against this defense last year. I think that is a step in the right direction. It's a motive of confidence for him. I was impressed by Tetairoa McMillan. I know he went to school in Tucson, but Phoenix is close enough where you feel like, hey, maybe he wants to impress the nearby fans. He's probably going to have a pretty big section of visitors as well. He'll be motivated. Chuba Hubbard remembers what he did last year. I think he can have success as well. I expect this to be another close game, but I think if they are not disciplined as a run defense, and they don't cover tight ends well, this is just going to be another one of those games where you look back and you say, man, like, what can they do on defense? Like, what is going on here? And again, I think in one sense I criticize EJ, but in another sense, like, he knows his system really, really well, and it is very hard to jump out of your system. They're not going to change up the front. They're not going to change up their system in the middle of the year. So they've got to figure this out. And really, this is a huge year for him. Like, the spotlight is on Evero, Bryce Young, and Dave Canales to deliver. And if they go and they steal a win in Arizona, like, that's a good way of turning this around. That's a good way of shutting us up. That's a good way of not having me go on a tangent for 10 minutes on a podcast called Processing Blue, a very good podcast just for you. I just, like, to me though, I'm going to favor Arizona. Like, I think Arizona right now is relatively the better team. I'm going to go 20-17 here. I think Arizona is going to win this. And we have said it is paramount for them the Panthers to go 1-1 in these first two games. I just don't think they're going to do it after watching what I saw in Jacksonville. What do you got?
Fair. Very fair. I am going to zag, and I'm going to say that Dave Canales has a much better day from a play calling perspective. I think the turnovers get rectified. When Bryce Young had a really bad turnover day against the Dallas Cowboys, he turned it around and ended the season really, really well last year. I'm going to retain that and say that the Panthers bounce back and win in Arizona 28-20. And that, like you said, would be massive. Through these first four games, they got to get 2 at minimum. And this is one where you really need to get. And I'm saying that if you want to have a winning season at 9-8, yes, but I'm also saying one that is competitive and that keeps these fans interested by the time the first home game comes in week 3. So yeah. Well, Mike, we went through a lot. How you feeling? Anything else left to say?
I feel like Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. I'm finished, but here's what I would say. If you're looking for something optimistic to cling to as a Panthers fan, it seems like they have a legitimate X receiver in Tetairoa McMillan. I think he showed a lot of promise there. I also think we have to keep in mind this is one game. The reason why we are harping so much on the defense is because we've seen this for 3 years. I think that makes it fair to criticize. I also think it's fair to criticize Dave Canales for his play calling and the operation, which were both kind of erratic. Bryce Young, again, physically as a passer, I thought he was fine. I thought everything else was poor. And I think there's only one place to go but up. And I think that's what the veterans are clinging to. I think that's what the Panthers need to cling to. I understand they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt anymore, nor should they, frankly. Dave Canales needs to prove that what happened in those last 8 weeks was not a mirage. Bryce Young needs to do the same. And Evero, frankly, just has to stop the run. Like, really, I can't emphasize that enough. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain fart there. But we all make mistakes. We all have bad performances. Just ask my hair, the person that cut my hair. But how you respond is really what matters. Alex, send us home.
And my final score prediction was 28-20 Panthers win. I'm not sure that I said that, but
you do say that. Will you stick to it? That's the question.
Thanks, as always, for listening to our pontifications on all things Panthers with Mike K. and myself and our wonderful producer, Emily Broyles. Please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts by searching Processing Blue. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes drop. And finally, please be sure to stick to charlotteobserver.com for all of your Panthers needs. Mike, stay humble, stay creative, and keep processing.